Welcome to The Reconnect with Carmen LaBerge. We're applying the mind of Christ to the matters of the day so that you can connect the eternal with the everyday and get ready to head out into the world that God so loves in ways that honor Jesus. So let's get started. This is The Reconnect.
Your daily encouragement that God has the world in the hollow of his hand.
This is The Reconnect with Carmen LaBerge on Faith Radio.
If we're gonna fly, we fly like eagles, arms out wide. If we're gonna fear, we fear no evil. We will rise. By your power we will go. By your spirit we are bold. If we're gonna stand, we stand as giants. If we're gonna walk, we walk as lions.
Hello, my friend. I was reading recently about the escalation in the use of like a benefit at work where you can take a long-term leave of absence for mental health. So here's just a paragraph, and this one happens to be covered in the Wall Street Journal, but it's actually, this is a story that's been covered by a number of outlets recently. Although employers have long granted extended absences for workers to pursue treatment for things like eating disorders or substance abuse or suicidal ideation, more and more people are now requesting time off these days for depression and anxiety. 67% of U.S. employers report an increase in mental health-related leaves of absence and accommodation requests just in the past year. 67%. That means a huge percentage of our employers are granting leaves of absence. This is not like a day off. This is like a person taking an extended leave of absence. And this is from a study that was released in May by an employment law specialty firm called Littler Mendelsohn. This figure rises to 74% for larger employers, and that's because they included in their benefit packages. So you could take a month or even 2 months off as a mental health break. That's a benefit that some large employers include in their packages. So here's a quote from an employment attorney. The number of absences in American workplaces is actually skyrocketing as a result of this. Leaves have been consistently elevated, they can track it since COVID, and they now regard this as a sustained shift, not a temporary disruption. And it's costly. It's costly because somebody else still has to do that work while that individual is taking their mental health break, their leave of absence, and it's hard to quantify the impact, but they're talking here about, let's say, something like $340 per day for a full-time worker who misses work in terms of the cost and impact to the employer. And annually over time in lost productivity in the United States, that's about $50 billion. And so employers are struggling, and employees are feeling ever more comfortable in coming forward and saying, I could use that. And these people making these assessments are like, I don't think people understand how crippling this is going to be for employers long term. So here's the conversation that I think that we can have. Certainly, if someone is in a mental health crisis and actually needs some sort of clinical therapeutic care, we want them to get that. But if what you really want to take is like a mini sabbatical and you just want to get away from it all, is that legit? Is that fair? If what you really want is a 4-week or 8-week holiday, is that fair to everybody else? Is that legit? Is that honest? I'm not saying that it wouldn't be nice, but we're talking here, the language is concept creep. And so is a person genuinely mentally ill and therefore does need this kind of covered benefit? Or Are they dealing with something that's really not clinically considered illness? Sometimes we just feel bad or sad. It's actually normal for people to feel bad when bad things happen or sad when sad things happen. It doesn't mean that we're clinically depressed or mentally ill. We might be fatigued or grieving or walking through a wilderness period or even a dark night of the soul. So I want to just explore if it's possible that there's something that you allow, like you allow something to paralyze you. Just think about that for a moment. Is there something that you allow to paralyze you? And then I want you to think for a moment about the perseverance of the Apostle Paul. Think about all the times we would have taken a break. We'd have been like, that is enough. Snake bites, stonings, shipwrecks, public beatings, arrests, fleeing in the middle of the night. That's enough. And yet Paul persevered. Or think about getting up in the dark of grief, putting one foot in front of the other because, well, frankly, the cows have to be milked and the fields have to be plowed and the bread has to be made and the job has to be done, whether we feel like it or not. I mean, sure, there are days I feel like sleeping in, but guess what? This is my job. God is great, and we've got work to do. There is a kingdom to advance, and there is a king who has granted us the day. And we live in the light of his glory and grace in the midst of it, come what may. Sometimes it's hard. And I am not denying the debilitating effects of genuine clinical mental illness. But I will confess that I'm suspicious that we have broadened the scope of the term today to encompass a whole lot of people who have been misled by cultural expectations to believe lies about life and work and comfort. I want you to consider David in 2 Samuel 12. David has a job to do. David is the king, right? David also has an infant son who is sick unto death. And whatever ailed this child was beyond the scope of the medicine of the day. And so David did what he could do. He pleaded, he prayed, he fasted. And then when his son died, what did David do? He washed, he worshiped God, and he went back to work. That might be hard to imagine. But it's the reality of life lived in the confidence that God does actually have all things in his mighty hand, in his loving hands. There's wisdom for us in David's witness. Today, you might have to resist the temptation to wallow in self-pity or even in grief. You may have to refuse to allow those things to paralyze you. Today, you may be the person who has to get up in the dark with the confidence that the sun will rise. Because, my friend, the sun has risen. There is hope. Jesus came that we might have life, have it abundantly, and have it to the full. And the enemy wants nothing more than to kill, steal, and destroy that. He's up to his old tricks. Don't let him get away with it with you. And if you genuinely need help, go get it. Our friend Bill English is going to join us next. We're going to talk about some of the destructive effects of being isolated and lonely. Yep, sometimes you gotta take a flashlight and you gotta get in there with somebody. All right, that's up next here on the Reconnect. Our friend Bill English is back from BibleandBusiness.com, On Path Coaching, and OnPathCounseling.com. Hi, Bill.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. There's actually a lot of us who, although we might be connected to a larger organization, we work in an environment where we're pretty isolated. And you have a post on 5, I'm not even good at saying that word, so I'm just going to say negative. 5 negative. What is the word? How do I say that word?
Deleterious.
Mm-hmm. Fancy
I
word
could have
for the
chosen
day.
a different word. I know. Sorry. I
5
apologize.
deleterious effects of being isolated and lonely. What is a deleterious effect, and what are some of them?
It's a negative effect that is also damaging. Deleterious is a kind of a negative
It's a very
damage
fancy
or
word.
injurious effect of some kind. Yeah.
Mm. 5 damaging, injurious effects
There
of
you
being
go.
isolated and lonely.
Yeah.
Deleterious. Deleterious is the word for the day, people. It looks like the word delete and then the letter R and then irius. Deleterious. The 5
There,
deleterious effect of we've got a word for the day anyway.
there
It's
you
good.
go.
It's good.
I,
Okay.
you know,
So go ahead.
no, go ahead. That's fine.
I thought you were gonna, make the argument for the word, which is totally fine. When we talk about people being isolated and lonely, we're not just talking about people taking a step away and having a little, alone time. This is different than that. So isolation and loneliness are what you're bringing into focus here. My guess is you're seeing more of this. What are the effects in general, maybe of isolation and loneliness, and then what are you really looking at specifically here today?
Yeah, and this post is in my Friday Five on my LinkedIn page. But the general effects of isolation is a loss of relationship, a loss of emotional connectedness, a loss of just being part of something larger than yourself, right? But here in the article, I focused on the physical effects, the 5, and I called them the 5 specific stress responses to triggered isolation, because isolation creates stress in our lives. A lot of people, and Carmen, this is really interesting thing. A lot of people think that relationships create their stress in their life, and they do. The ones that are dysfunctional, the ones that don't work well, the toxic relationships can create a boatload of stress. But the healthy relationships actually lower your stress, which is kind of an interesting dynamic that we don't often talk about. And so then I list the 5 physical results of being isolated when you're under stress or when you're with dysfunctional relationships. The first one is what is called sustained cortisol production. These are the adrenal glands. They constantly release stress hormones, and that disrupts sleep, impairs memory, and slows down your body's healing processes. So, if you're a person in the hospital and you're trying to heal, probably the most toxic relationships you have in life should not be visiting you.
Mm. Mm.
Keep those people away. Keep the people that you really enjoy being with, that you have a good relationship with. Those are the people you want looking at you, right? Hypervigilance is another one where we shift into this high alert state, and we cause, we end up perceiving social environments as hostile, making it harder to relax. A lot of times this is more reacting to the past than the present, where something in the present mimics a stressful or toxic relationship or relationship characteristic, if I can put it that way, from the past. And so we react to the past rather than what's actually happening in the present. But that hypervigilance causes us to confuse the past and the present many times.
Okay,
Third one,
so can I
elevated
ask a
blood. Yeah,
question?
no,
Can I ask
yeah,
a
yeah.
question
Please
about that
do.
one?
Yeah, please. Yeah,
So you have me wondering there when the brain shifts and causes a person to perceive something in the current environment as somehow negatively related, like or reflective of something that's happened in the past. Would you say that sometimes the relationship that a person had growing up in their household um, is intruding in a relationship that they're having today because they're like wired to respond, like they're that hypervigilance is like trained into them by something that happened growing up?
yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Yes,
I'm thinking here about
yes.
our attachment styles a little bit.
Yeah, I can see how you would go there. Look, when
Mhm.
we're growing up, I'm talking, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Little.
6 years of
Mhm.
age. We don't have any choice, and we're completely unaware of the fact that our concept of what it means to be a man or a woman, a dad or a mother, a sister or a brother, comes from our family. And that's why, in some of the research I'm reading right now, I'm writing a chapter on emotions in business and emotions in the Christian life. That's why there's a growing body of voices out there that says the family that we grew up in is primarily responsible for our theological and spiritual formation, and that a lot of times the the theologies that we accept or reject is as much an emotional decision as it
Mhm.
is an intellectual or well-reasoned decision. In fact, a lot of times people use reason to support their emotion rather than the other way around.
Mm. I believe that. That's not going to be a hard chapter to sell to me. All right, we're talking with our friend Bill English from On Path Coaching and On Path Counseling. Every Friday, he posts something on his LinkedIn called the Friday Five, and we are looking at one of those posts today. We'd be happy to send you a direct link on the text line 877-933-2484. When we come back from a brief break, we're going to talk about the additional deleterious effects of being isolated and lonely.
I'm
Deleterious.
proud of
It's the
you.
word of the day. That's up next here on the Reconnect. Just take the first step. Just take the first step. I mean, every journey begins with a first step, right? And if you want to hike to the top of a mountain or if you just want to, well, make it around the block, it all starts with a first step. Just take one step, a step out the door. Now, the same holds true in the journey of discipleship with Jesus. A relationship with Jesus actually begins with a first step. Sometimes taking that first step can be really hard, right? Well, if you've got questions about what it means to begin a relationship with Jesus, just take the first step. Text the word faith to 41224. Our friends at the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association are going to hold your hand as you take the first step or the next step in your walk of faith with Jesus. They're going to help you walk with him and talk with him. Take the first step of faith today. Text the word faith to 41224. Are you isolated and lonely? Well, that is having a negative effect on your life. Not just negative, but destructive over time. And Bill English is here with us from BibleandBusiness.com, On Path Coaching and On Path Counseling. Bill, let's continue down the list of the 5 deleterious effects of being isolated and lonely. We've been talking about the specific stress responses that are triggered by isolation. You've covered sustained cortisol production and hypervigilance. What's next?
Elevated blood pressure. Chronic stress tightens your blood vessels and forces your heart to work harder, and that increases the long-term risk of heart disease. You just kind of wonder if Lindsey Graham wasn't under so much stress that this was not that he was isolated, but that the elevated blood pressure, the increased blood vessel tightening, that kind of thing, led to his demise. Suppressed immune functions. Number 4, prolonged isolation weakens your white blood cells, making it harder for your body to fight off viral infections. It's not uncommon to see people who do not have any good friends also be people who are just chronically sick with this or that or the other. I see it actually fairly often. And then finally, systemic inflammation. The body activates a continuous inflammatory response, which gradually over time damages tissues and accelerates the aging process. It's interesting. I don't mean to be mean with this, Carmen, but people who have prolonged loneliness often look older than they actually are.
For sure. No, I don't think that's I don't think that's mean. I think that's an honest assessment. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, that's an honest assessment. Okay, so let's talk about the positive effect of developing intimate relationships, and what it takes to do that and why it's so good.
Intimate relationships heal the wounds from past relationships that cause us to isolate in the first place. So when we develop healthy, intimate relationships, we develop the ability to receive and give grace, and we develop the ability to give and receive truth. And then we end up we change literally our conclusions and beliefs about current events, who we are in those events, who others are in those events, our life, and how God transcends all of this, right? So our feelings become much better because our beliefs and experiences become much better. I believe that I'm cognitive in that way. I think that beliefs precede feelings. And one of the things I note here in my article is that the more we believe the truth, I'm going to call it good theology. The more we believe good theology, the more freedom we're going to have. And the more we adopt bad theology or wrong or false theology, the more we're going to be in bondage and the more we're going to be isolated. I really honestly believe that right theology produces freedom and connection, and wrong theology produces bondage and isolation.
Oh, and there's a lot of not just bad theology out there. There are a lot of people who have been subjected to environments where bad theology has totally um, left them with an image of God that is it's just wrong. It's just not at all who God is. And so I think that being patient with one another and recognizing that about other people, that other people don't necessarily perceive God the way that you do because they have been literally brought up to believe something that is not true about God. And so shining light and walking alongside people is really, really important, which means that sometimes we have to like go to the isolated person and be like, like trying to get the little squirrel to come out of the cave, right? Like there are times that we need to help draw people out of isolation.
Yes, and you do that by mirroring, mimicking, whatever word you want to use, the character of God to them,
Mm, mm.
right? And so when you look at how does God lead us? Well, you lead like God leads. How does Christ love us? Well, you lay down your life for your friends. And sometimes we might have to take a punch or two in order to help them connect with God.
Some of this is about reducing and lowering the stress level, not like raising the temperature in every relationship, but like lowering that temperature. Talk with us just a little bit about that to connect with other people and develop intimacy by lowering the physical, spiritual, psychological, mental stress.
Yeah, you know where my mind just goes, and I know what I wrote here in the article, but where my mind goes with that is that we need to emotionally connect with God.
Mm.
And this, a lot of, I'm surprised at how many Christians don't want to go here. They want their faith to be mainly intellectual. They want it to be systematized. They want it, they want to read, they want to study, and all those kinds of things. But there's an aspect of our relationship with God that is emotional, that cannot be systematized. It is experiential. And you get it through meditation. You get it through what I call soaking with God, just being with God. And the more that you do that, there's this whole dynamic, beautiful, sweet, wonderful aspect of our relationship with God that gives us an inner strength and an encouragement and a life purpose that we cannot find apart from Him. And part of that life purpose is, I really just want to be with God.
So the word that came to mind there as you were talking about that is like
Yeah,
in a spiritual context, to think about having good chemistry with God. Like, right?
yeah, I like
I
it.
mean,
I like
I
it.
don't know if I've got chemistry with somebody until like I've sniffed you out. We've been in the same room. I feel a sense of connection to a person. Intimacy. It's impossible to have intimacy in just something that's like on a list or in a book, right? So I think that for me, the word chemistry is what came to mind. Like, you got good chemistry with God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
No, I love it. And chemistry, it cannot be systematized. It can't be
No,
categorized. It can't be compartmentalized, right? It's just there or not. And people look for chemistry in romantic relationships, in friendships. Seems to me that we can also look for it in our relationship with God.
sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, we have to leave it right there. But thank you so
Yep.
much, as always, for joining us today, for bringing us a word that's hard to say, and right, just making us think, putting on our smarty pants. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. You're
All right,
welcome.
that's Bill English. You can connect with him directly at On Path Coaching and onpathcounseling.com. If you go to his LinkedIn page, you will find a number of resources, but every Friday he posts his Friday Five, and that's where we derived today's conversation from. So we'll send you a direct link to that on the text line, 877-933-2484. Now, I've got some really good news for you. You were not meant to hold it all together. Isn't that good news? That's such good news. You were meant to be held together. You were not meant to hold it all together. You were meant to be held by the one who alone can hold it all together. You and I were meant to actually live in an arboreal paradise of Eden. We were actually meant to live outdoors and eat what grows there and walk and talk in peace and joy with one another. And I've said this before, but we live a long way from Eden. And where we live now, this distance from Eden, it's overwhelming, it's rushed, and it's anxious. Nicole Savar is going to join us next. She has been there and done that, and she wants you to know you don't have to hold it all together. And you were never meant to. What a relief. She joins us next here on The Reconnect. Are you trying to hold it all together? Nicole Savar has been there. She is joining us now. The book is I Don't Have to Hold It All Together, Cultivating the Peace of Eden When You Feel Overwhelmed. Nicole, welcome to The Reconnect.
Hi, Carmen. It's so good to be here. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, likewise. So, maybe let's just start by allowing you to, I really want to start with a conversation about the combination of cheddar cheese and pickles, but that's not really what the book is about. But if we were together, that is what we would be doing. So I just want to just totally affirm that. You share really candidly about living with undiagnosed anxiety for a long time, using
hmm
perfectionism and control to like fake a sense of peace. So talk
hmm
about that like process of realizing that you were trying to create your own Eden and how that was really destroying your well-being.
Yeah, like you said, I suffered with undiagnosed anxiety for most of my life. Since 8 years old is when my first memories of having panic attacks. But it wasn't until I was 36 years old and having suicidal ideations that it scared me that I called a hotline. And that started me on the road to getting a diagnosis and starting my healing journey. But alongside that was a moment when I was driving my kids home from school. They were all in elementary school. There's chaos in the back seat. They're all asking me something at the same time. And in my brain, I'm thinking through all the things I still had to do today and the dinner I had to make and all the homework that was ahead and so many things I didn't get done. And I just felt like everything was falling apart. And I just could not hold it together. But in my brain, I was thinking, you have to hold it together. Hold it together, Nicole. And it was in the fall, and we live in the Midwest, so we have all these beautiful maple trees. They were yellow. The day before, they were all on the trees. They were gorgeous. And that day, I looked over, and those trees, all the leaves were on the ground. The trees were empty. And I had this cynic thought that I'm like, how can I hold it together? The trees aren't even doing it. And the spirit whispered to me right there and said, I never asked you to hold it all together. I have a plan for these trees. What is happening with them is exactly what's supposed to be happening. And with you, I am the one holding things together. It is not your job. And that was kind of an epiphany moment for me. It really kind of took my breath away. I kind of stopped. I was thankfully at a stop sign and my whole body just stilled for a minute. And it was this realization that I was trying to be God. I was trying to control everything. And I thought it was my job to be the provider, to control the outcomes. And when I started down that road of like, okay, what does it look like to not be the one to hold it all together? I started realizing there's things that I could release and that weren't up to me.
Nicole, first of all, thank you for just being candid and honest and real. Because that resonates. Like, right, we may not have been in that car with those kids on that day, but we have been in that place. And like trying to create a life that where we're the one holding it all together, and we all fail at that. I mean, because we're not meant to do it. Like we're just not meant to do that. So thank you. I often say, like, we live a long way from Eden. Like that's my explanation in my conversations with people a lot of the time when they're making an observation about a brokenness or a disease or something. And I'm like, we live a long way from Eden. Talk with us about the peace of Eden and what that means practically for us when we feel like, we're in a battlefield or an active war zone. What does the peace of Eden practically mean?
Yeah, I agree with you. We are a long way from Eden. We are in exile. But yet, what this book revolves around is the fact that there are gifts of Eden that God has allowed to be here with us today. And when we are intentional about cultivating those gifts that God has given us, we start to understand Him more. We start to understand His peace, and we get a deeper understanding of Him. And so through my book, I walk through these different attributes of Eden, these gifts that when we cultivate, that is the peace of Eden that we can start to feel and experience and know our Father better.
Yeah, it's something that we receive. Peace is not something that we create. It never was. Like
exactly. Yes. Yes.
So I really appreciate that. Okay, now that your appetite has been whetted, let us send you a direct link to Nicole's website, which is livewithintent.org, and a link to the book, I Don't Have to Hold It All Together, Cultivating the Peace of Eden When You Feel Overwhelmed. Let's just lift up, Nicole, one of those attributes of Eden that is accessible to us in the present. What's one you want to talk about today?
Yeah, I always start with the very first one, and that is communion with God. We often skip over that when we're trying to think about there's chaos in this house or in this world or in my mind, and we try to do all these physical things to calm it. We try to clean the house or shut off sounds, or there's all these practical things we try, but we need to get back to the core of where our peace is, and that is with our Father. And so communion with our Father is acknowledging and recognizing that the Holy Spirit, when we have surrendered our lives to Christ, we are sealed with the Holy Spirit, and He is with us at all times. And at any time, we can converse with Him, we can connect with Him. And when we start walking through our days, acknowledging and seeing that our Father is with us at all times, that we have His source of his peace, even in the middle of chaos. So it's more than just prayer. It's communion and it's fellowship. It's sharing all the things. It's the things that you're frustrated about. It's the things that delight you. It is, I describe it in my book when you're picturing if you're walking on a really busy street, it's really hard to walk beside someone. They're either in front of you and you're trying to yell at them and they're trying to listen to you, or you're ahead of them and you have to keep looking behind you. That is what we're often trying to do with our Father. But what we need to do is to slow down and walk beside Him. And then you're having this conversation. You're picturing a friend beside you that you can commune and fellowship with, you're connecting with at all times.
It's so good. I love the word communion. I think that we tend to think of that as, the celebration of the Lord's Supper and our participation in it. But it's this common union. It's being in communion with God, and communing with God, and it's highly relational. It's so thank you for like recovering a word as well.
Mm. Yeah, when we have that common union, when that Holy Spirit is in us and working us, we react to things differently. We see the world differently because we are being influenced by the Spirit instead of influenced by our culture.
It's so good. Absolutely. Let's take a brief break. When we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with Nicole Suvar. The book is I Don't Have to Hold It All Together, Cultivating the Peace of Eden When You Feel Overwhelmed. We'd like to connect you with Nicole at her website, livewithintent.org. We'll also send you a link to the book. We'll do that on the text line, 877-933-2484. When we come back, I'm going to let Nicole advocate for literally getting outdoors. That's up next here on The Reconnect. When was the last time someone asked you to pray for them? When's the last time you asked someone to pray for you? Here at Faith Radio, we pray with and for you about the concerns in your life, and we share with you the concerns of others. We are a praying people. So we want to invite you to share your prayer request with us. Our team prays continually and intentionally once a week for the requests that we receive. And so share your prayer requests with Faith Radio by texting or calling 877-933-2484. You can share your prayer requests with us, and you can be confident that we are praying for you. When you encounter a difficult situation, what is your self-talk? What are the conversations you're having with yourself? One of the things that Nicole Suvar does is asks, what part of this was good in Eden? What was good before sin distorted it? That's some of the kind of equipping that you get, some of the very tangible and practical help that you get in Nicole's book. I Don't Have to Hold It All Together, Cultivating the Peace of Eden When You Feel Overwhelmed. Nicole, let's get outdoors. You advocate that we should actually get outdoors.
Yes, I am a huge fan of being outside. Yeah, if you just go back to even Eden, when humans were created, they were planted in a garden. We began in a garden. We were designed to be outside. And often we are disregarding it. If you think about, we even call our thermostats climate control. Like we are indoors trying to mimic what is the most comfortable, and we call that our climate. When going outside has so much to connect us with our Creator. Not only are there ways that not only does the creation support our systems, but we support the system itself. Even the most simplest one is like between the oxygen and the carbon dioxide that we breathe and plants need and vice versa. But also when we go outside, the reminder we have in so many ways that he is the one holding all things together. And just being outside for a short amount of time, you've got the vitamin D that you get from being in the sun that your body produces that actually is started by being in the sunlight, like just something simple like that. And the fresh air, and there's even touching the green grass. There, all of these things are supportive of our bodies and also our mental wellness. There's so much out there we can discuss.
No, it's so good. I think that when we when we say, oh, we don't live in Eden anymore. We live a long way from it. I
Mhm.
love that you're this conviction that, like, yeah, we can't go back, but we can take it with us. Like, there are so many things about Eden that are available, even when maybe we have a conversation with our kids, advocating that they eat the rainbow and that they avoid processed foods because, right, that wasn't available in Eden. I mean, we can have very practical conversations about male female relationships, about being made in the image of God, about being fruitful and multiplying. I mean, there's all kinds of conversations that we can have that are like based in a conversation about Eden. I want to give you the opportunity to talk a little bit about boundaries. I think this is one of the
Mm.
things that I really appreciate about the way you're roaming around in a particular conversation. You move from like a rigid, self protective understanding of boundaries to a more grace filled understanding of boundaries where we're really allowed to connect with others. It's not about, being separated from, but being in community with. Can you talk a little bit about boundaries?
Yeah, and the fact that boundaries is actually gives us freedom within limits. People can look at boundary, yeah, in several different ways. Sometimes we see them as, like you had said, these rigid walls that keep us from maybe doing the things that we want to do. Or we see them as, I've got to throw up boundaries because I got to protect myself from toxic people or whatever it might be that you feel like you need to put up boundaries. But boundaries were in Eden, so they are needed. Like God told Adam and Eve, like, you are free to go all these places, but there's this part here I'm putting this boundary around. And when we follow, or when they follow that boundary, there was freedom. But when they started pushing up against it, that is when destruction came. And so we can apply that into our own lives as well. As when we think about, are we being too rigid? Are we putting up rules for ourselves? Those shoulds that I talk about. A good mom should be this way. A good wife should be like this. A good friend should look like this. We start putting up these boundaries on ourselves that weren't necessarily meant to be there. And so in that chapter, I talk about the wisdom that is found when we go to the Father to establish boundaries instead of the world. The world tells us all sorts of boundaries that we should have or we shouldn't have. But the word, his word, gives us so much wisdom when it comes to what is really the boundaries that we need to live within. And in that
So
chapter two, I also suggest there was this study where they had these children. They didn't give them a boundary, but the children ended up like going really close to the teacher that was with them because they weren't sure where the safe space was. But when they
Mhm.
put up a boundary, the kids played fully within that whole space. They could go all the way up to the fence because they knew where the safety was. And how think about how we can translate that into our own lives.
I really appreciate the way, Nicole, that you develop the reflection at the end of each chapter, how
Hmm.
you focus us on God's word, how you invite personal reflection on that. And then the things where you like, invite us to genuinely reflect on something, going on in our own lives, in our hearts and our minds. And then the surrender and trust encouragement. So
Hmm.
talk for a moment. I mean, we just have a moment left, but talk for a moment about surrender.
Yes, if you look at the reflection, the focus identifies surrender and trust. It spells out fist. I didn't go into that in the book, but it's really hard to release things when you're holding on to with fists. It's really hard to control things even with fists. But when we surrender, when we have our open hands and we're surrendering that to God, He can do so much more. He has unlimited resources. We are very limited, but yet we believe we're the ones that can control it. But when we are surrendering control and provision and outcomes to Him, there's so much more He can do with it because He is the one with unlimited resources and He is the good, good Father.
Oh, this is so good. I did not know, I didn't recognize that it was an acronym, but I sure do like that. I sure do like that.
Yes.
That is so good. Nicole, thank you for being with us today on the Reconnect. Thank you for your ministry at livewithintent.org. Thank you for your book. I don't have to hold it all together. And thanks for the conversation today. We appreciate it.
Yes, Carmen, I loved it. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. We'd like to connect you with Nicole Suvar at livewithintent.org. Again, we'll send you a direct link to the book as well. We'll do that on the text line, 877-933-2484. So good, right? My guess is you have a little takeaway from today's conversations. So maybe you need to have that takeaway. You need to write it down. You need to tuck it away somewhere. Maybe it goes all the way back to where we started the conversation, which you know is where we're going to conclude the conversation as well. And that's with the blessing that comes from Numbers chapter 6, verses 24 and 25. I really do want you to intentionally bless someone today. I mean, bless you or God bless you. When's the last time you heard those words or spoke those words? And if it involved a sneeze, then I really do want you to lay claim today to the blessing in Numbers chapter 6. And I want you to intentionally speak it over someone else. I want you to speak God's blessing, God's keeping over someone else today. Consider memorizing this and offering this blessing over someone. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you his peace. Who do you know that needs that today? What might happen today if you looked and you listened for opportunities to reflect this blessing to somebody who doesn't know that there's a God who blesses or that every blessing comes from the Father above? Somebody who doesn't know they're kept. Somebody who doesn't know they're deeply loved. Somebody who doesn't know that God's watch care is available. God's not watching, just waiting to catch you doing something wrong. God's watching like a delighted parent. What if instead of a quick and reflexive cultural bless you, we actually stopped and used the blessing from Numbers chapter 6 to really bless someone else today? Put yourself in a posture right now to receive the blessing. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you his peace. Peace. Do you need the peace of the Lord today? People don't need another piece of our minds. They need the peace of the mind of Christ. And God is sending you into the world to give it to them. Have a great day, and God bless. Thanks for listening to The Reconnect with Carmen LaBerge. Let us know how we can help you more fully reconnect the eternal with the everyday. We want to walk with you throughout your journey of discipleship, so let's connect. You can text us at 877-933-2484 or connect with us online at myfaithradio.com and on all our social media. I look forward to connecting with you as we each seek to reconnect the eternal with the everyday.